Good morning, Trish here with Divine Journey Yoga in Tucson, Arizona. We're doing some more yin today. This is a little shorter practice, so maybe you can fit it in. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. I want to start with an intention setting, kind of a prayer for yin. That it's called the traditional yin prayer, but I don't really know why. I love it as a beginning spot for our practice. It goes like this. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with the energy of love. May our study be filled with light, and may there be no ego between us. Om, peace, peace, peace. Maybe you could bring your hands together, palm to palm, or just let them rest still in your lap as your chin slowly drops down and you just tune in to your breath. Noticing the movement of the body as you breathe. As you inhale, notice the breath in the chest, making the sides of the ribs expand and the top corners of the chest lift upward. And then just let it go. Inhale and feel the back of your body expand and press downward, expanding the back of the ribs. And then exhale. Inhaling, notice your belly expanding. And exhale. Feeling your inhale, and then noticing what happens on your exhale. Feeling the movement begin just below the navel as the belly draws up and in, pushing the air out. And then breathe in again. On this next exhale, feel the sides of your rib cage drawing inwards toward the center of the spine. And breathing in again. With your next exhale, let the shoulder blades soften, sliding down your back. And then just keep breathing, 2 more breaths, noticing whatever you notice. And then simply opening your eyes and looking around, maybe wiggling your fingers, rocking your neck a little bit side to side. I'd like to do a really slow flow before we move into our first shape. So we'll start with our cat-cow, maybe hooking your fingers just gently around the fronts of your knees as your chest rocks forward, shoulders slide back, chin reaches out. Inhale. And then slowly rock back on the exhale, letting the belly and the chest cave in. And just do that one more time. Inhale, forward. And exhale, backwards. Coming back to center, we're just going to drop to one side. Maybe ending on the exhale, stretching it out. Inhaling back to center. Exhaling to the other side. And once more on each side with your breath. Coming back up on that inhale. We're just going to gently twist, letting the arms slide over to finish the exhale. Let all the air out, and inhaling back through the middle and over to the other side on the exhale. And once more on each side, following your breath. And it's totally okay to be on an inhale or an exhale wherever you are. You don't have to follow the rules. Eventually coming back to center, just rolling the shoulders. We're gonna move nice and slow into child's pose. If for any reason your knees do not want you to be on your knees, then you can lay on your back and pull the knees into your chest. That's a really nice way to let those knees be safe and comfortable. I want to encourage you to keep those knees wide apart out to the edges of the mat, big toes touching as your hips slide back. You might reach for a block or a pillow just to place your forehead on. Especially if you have any kind of osteoporosis, you want to make sure that the spine stays long and that you're not rounding in the low back. This will be our first yin pose of the day. Just breathing here, settling into the hips. Moving back into that awareness of what it feels like when you breathe in on that inhale. Noticing all the little parts that are moved, and then on the exhale, the same thing, using a little bit of the musculature around the core to breathe all that air out. And just keep breathing. As we rest in child's pose, just noticing how you're feeling this morning, taking care of yourself. Without judging, without tampering with the experience, trying to let go of understanding and just letting yourself be with your breath. Let's take about 4 more breaths here together. Just slowly lifting your head, maybe letting it come up and down a few times as you walk your hands in towards your knees. If your knees are okay with it, you can sit on your heels, just getting that stretch into the knee joint. And we're gonna move into a sloppy pigeon. That's what I like to call it. So I'm gonna let my hips sink over to one side, start to slide one leg back as the other knee kind of slides forward. So I'm kind of sideways. The hands are on either side of that knee point as we just gently begin to relax over that leg. Again, this is a great place for a block to help maintain the length of the spine so you're not rounding too much over your knee. This is an interesting place to breathe because the belly gets kind of squished. I like to think that that allows the back of the lungs to expand a little deeper, stretching some of that fascia, massaging the organs in a different way. If for any reason it's just not comfortable, if there's any acid reflux or heartburn, staying up here with your hands on the mat, getting a little bit more of a back bending. You're still getting a really nice deep stretch in the back of the hip. Also, of course, if you need to, you can do this on your back. And it looks like a figure 4. So you'll just take that knee that's in front of you and cross that ankle over the other and bring the knee to the chest. If your knees would prefer that this morning, please feel free to do that instead. And as your body softens and relaxes, you might adjust and go a little deeper. Or you might have the opposite reaction. Your body might start to tighten up and you might need to release some of the pressure and come up out of the pose a little bit. The practice of Yin is a very special one because it's so unique to each individual body. And I feel like as a teacher, my job is simply to remind you of that you're important. Let's just take 2 more deep breaths here. Slowly begin to lift the head, push the hands, walk them in, pull that back knee up. We're gonna come up onto table pose for a moment here. Just reaching back with the leg that was bent in front of you, letting it open up a little bit. Take some cat-cows. You can even go back to child's pose or down to your belly. Anything that feels good here, down dog. Taking those deep breaths, kind of noticing the difference in your legs. See if you can feel a difference. And while we're in our table pose, I'd like to just crawl over to the other end of the mat so that we can do the other side of our pigeon variation, our sloppy pigeon on this side. I'm gonna widen the knees apart, sink my hips back toward my heels, come into a seated kneeling position, and then shift my hips over to the side, reach back with the leg that was in front last time, reach forward with the other leg, get comfy. Feel free to use blankets and pillows as you slowly settle down into your sloppy pigeon, or I guess in Yin it's called swan pose. Just resting using blocks if you need to. Feeling that beautiful movement of the breath. Going deep into the sensations, locating where they are in the body. What do they feel like? Is there warmth or coolness? What else is changing? Breath by breath, moment by moment. Not trying to judge it or change it, just giving in. Just 2 more deep breaths. Begin by lifting the head and pushing the hands into the floor. We're just going to come up and lean back this time. You can keep the legs where they are for a moment and then start to stretch them out. Leaning back. If for any reason you decide you want to lay all the way back, that is totally fine. Just go ahead and do that. Our next pose will be a butterfly shape. And so for some of us, that means we're going to lay back on our back and put the soles of our feet together and our knees apart. And for others, it might mean we're going to sit up on a blanket or a block. Bring the soles of the feet together, any distance from the body that works for your inner legs. So whether your spine is on the mat, laying back, or it's seated, it's long, lifting, nice and tall. If you're on your back, you can really allow the legs to just let gravity do its work, opening, letting all those beautiful tendons get a nice little stretch in there. If you're seated, you can begin to lean the belly toward the floor, keeping the spine long and tall. Now, especially if you have any kind of osteopenia or osteoporosis, this is where you're gonna stay right here, nice and long, just getting that inner leg stretch. If you don't wanna worry about the spine this morning, you wanna let it have a little extra curve, you can let the head start to drop slowly, getting that rounding in the spine. Watching though for any pain or discomfort, especially in the lumbar spine, so you wanna be careful there. Letting yourself enjoy the stretch. Going to that edge and then resting there, just following the rhythm of the breath. Sometimes it feels nice to rock a little bit to one side or the other. I know that Yin is a practice of stillness, but sometimes it feels so good to add that really slow movement. It's very comforting to the nervous system, quieting to the mind. Trying to notice any of the places in the body where you might be kind of tense or holding on, especially in those shoulders. We tend to slide them up through our day, so try to let them slide back down away from your ears, lengthening the neck. Sending the breath down into the belly. Every time you breathe in, the energy and the awareness fills up the breath, fills that low belly. And then when we breathe out, we get a little heavier, just grounding the body with the breath. Let's take 3 more breaths here. Just taking your time as you slowly lift up if you've been seated. If you're laying back, you might just bring the soles of the feet to the floor. We are all going to take our time to lay all the way back on our backs, moving really slowly, not trying to wake anything up. So we're just going to take our time laying all the way back. Feel free to rock your knees and let your body slowly soften. Just breathing nice and slow, letting the back of your head rock a little side to side. Gently bringing the knees into your chest, giving yourself a hug and rocking a little, maybe making some circles on that low back. We're going to take a long time to roll over onto our side and then onto our belly. So we're going to just slowly roll over. Take a few breaths on your side, maybe kind of scooting back to the back edge of your mat so you've got lots of room. As you slowly start to straighten out the legs, maybe take the arm over the head, point the toes, and roll onto your belly. If you like to have something under your pelvis here, you can use a blanket for that. You can slide it right up under the pubic bone, under the hip bones, if that feels good to you. And we're on our elbows, and we'll just be here for a couple of minutes. Just curving out. I want to say strengthening the low back, stretching it out. It's so therapeutic. So first thing we do is tune into that low back, making the adjustments we need to have that feel doable. And then we might readjust the elbows, walking them in or wider. And at first I like to kind of sink into my shoulders a little bit, let the spine lengthen a little, let the legs soften a little, maybe even move the feet, and then come into whatever level of the back bend feels right. Beginning to let the shoulders be slightly lifted. We want to find a comfortable position. We might even use the block to support the head, just allowing the neck a little bit of a break. Moving into that sensation, awareness of the breath. Where does it move as you breathe in? And as you breathe out. We want to watch the level of sensation, especially in that low back. Make sure that it's not too intense. Knowing and giving ourselves permission to move if and when we need to. Sometimes I like a little bit of gentle rocking here, getting just a little bit of a side stretch and shoulder movement. See how the neck is. If at this point you'd like to go down into a resting position, you could do that. You can stay in your Sphinx pose for this last 60 seconds, or you could widen your hands, spread the palms, lift the shoulders up a little higher, and breathe into your seal pose. Just allowing the breath to tell you when you've had enough. Long neck. You can use the glutes or even gently rock the pelvis to allow the back to feel a little more comfortable. Just enjoying that stretch across the front of the belly, knowing you don't have to stay. You can go down, you can relax, you can move when and if you need to. We're just going to take 2 more breaths together here. Bending the elbows, slowly letting them touch the mat as you widen the arms and relax all the way down onto your belly. Softening. Breathing nice and low. And as you watch that back tension slowly disappear, you might begin to tuck your toes and rock your heels or bend your knees. And also start to think about what your next pose, your counter pose, will be like coming out of this back bend. Maybe you know you want to do a child's pose, or maybe you prefer to roll onto your side and pull your knees into your chest in a fetal position on your side, a seed pose, or roll all the way onto your back and pull your knees in. Kind of up to you at this point. We're just going to take our time, slowly changing into the counter pose. Feel free to move a little or simply rest in stillness. If you know you don't have any kind of osteoporosis or osteopenia, you can bring your knees together, shift your hips back, flat tops of the feet. You can reach your arms back behind you and let the hairline of your head just kind of rest on the mat. Let the shoulders droop and let that low back round out a little bit. Now, if you do have osteoporosis or osteopenia, then you'll probably have your elbows on the floor, just a little bit of stretch on that low back, or even widening your knees apart is much safer for the low back here. And we'll all just take 3 or 4 more breaths. Taking your time to bring your head up. Walk your hands in. We're just going to bring the legs all the way around. And we'll do a simple seated, really gentle movement in our staff pose. Legs straight out, hands leaning back, hands probably pointing off to the sides of the mat. Start to lift your heart and push through your heels. Curl your toes towards your knees. And then really nice and slow, just take little inch by inch movement of your hands so that your shoulders come closer and closer to being right above your hips, keeping the length through the legs. You can let the legs be long and strong or just soft on the mat as you bring those shoulders over the hips, and then maybe lean slightly forward from the hip joint, leaning the belly and the chest forward, stretching the backs of the legs. We're going to stay here for several deep breaths, and you might bring your hands forward. You just want to make sure that the spine is long. No rounding. And you could move into a little twist here, taking one arm onto the legs, maybe crossing it over. Just really slow twist, making the spine really long. We're not going very far in the twist. Keep breathing. Maybe try the other side. Remembering you don't have to do the twist at all. Checking in with your neck. Just one more deep breath. Slowly starting to lean back again. Lifting the hips slightly to move them to the middle of the mat so that we can lay all the way back. As we move toward Shavasana, feel free to rock your knees side to side, pulling them into the chest if and when you want to. I always want to encourage you to consider putting your legs up the wall or sliding a block up under your hips. Both are so beneficial for the heart and the circulation and the detoxification of the body. They have so many great health benefits. You can lift your legs up. We're just moving into our Shavasana nice and slow, kind of moving into the awareness that it's time to rest. Whatever that looks like for you, settling in, letting the breath help you to soften. Breathing in nice and deep and then letting that exhale flow all of the air out. Over and over again. With each inhale, the breath is drawn deep down into the belly. And with each exhale, that low back sinks a little deeper and you get a little heavier on the mat. take about 3 or 4 more breaths together. We transition out of Shavasana by simply opening the eyes and looking around, and then maybe moving the fingers and the toes. If your legs have been straight, then you bend them, moving the ankles and the wrists, allowing the knees to rock side to side. Gently rolling over into seed pose. Pausing for that moment of gratitude, thinking of a few great things, good things, things you're thankful for in your life. And maybe setting the intention to add a few more things to your day. Good things that are kind and beneficial. Slowly let yourself push upward into a seated position. And we will end the way that we started with that traditional yin prayer. Just let your spine be long and your hands rest maybe on your legs or together, palm to palm. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with the energy of love. And may our lives be filled with light. May there be no ego between us. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Namaste. Thank you.